Sinead, and hello everybody. I'm Róisín Cahalan. I am the course director of the programme. So just to welcome you all here today, I see some of my students there from the year just gone by. And thanks to Sinead for sorting all of this out. So basically the plan for today is I'm going to bring you through a couple of slides and talk about the programme, tell you a little bit about what's involved, the usual questions around assessment, burden and cost and what we're covering. And then I'm going to hand it over to a number of my students who have just finished the programme so that you can hear from them about their experience. And you can then ask any questions. So Sinead will unmute you, or you can pop your questions in the chat. So thanks so much for taking the time. It is recorded, so we'll be able to send it on as well afterwards. So Sinead, you might be able, I'm going to actually stop sharing and reshare so I can see myself in the window. All right, so can we see this?
That's perfect. Yep, just gone into presentation. Oh, that's perfect.
Great, perfect. Okay, so welcome to the programme, Optimisation of Health for Performance in Irish Dancers. So it's a one-year programme, part-time certificate, and you will be awarded a certificate from the University of Limerick if you're successful. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am an AD and a TC with Commission Limerick Gaelga. I'm from Limerick in Ireland, and I danced with Scoil Rinky Newlawn, so I did pretty well many decades ago as a competitive dancer. So I'd have been top 5 in the world multiple times. Second would have been my top placing multiple times regional champion. Was in Riverdance for 8 years, where I was lead for quite a number of years. I did my TC during my Riverdance years, and then I did my AD some years later, and I judge here and there. But I did my PhD in injury in elite Irish dancers way back, I suppose must be nearly 10 years ago now, and I really wanted to look at why Irish dancers were getting injured. I'm also a physiotherapist, so when I left Riverdance, I came back to University of Limerick and I studied physiotherapy. So I've worked with dancers for years and years, Irish dancers, I suppose, because I understand what goes on with them and the language that we speak and the injuries that they sustain. But I'm also the world's leading researcher on injury in Irish dancing. So I've done lots of work around, tracking dancers, Irish dancers, why they get injured, and looked at diet in Irish dancers, looked at things like parenting relationships in Irish dancing and so on. So I've published a textbook in the area. And last year we had our first intake of the cohort for this programme, and it was a really wonderful year. We learned a lot from each other, but we had a lot of experts along the way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So the reason that I developed this programme was because I knew anecdotally that there's a gap in what we know as Irish dancing teachers. So we know choreography, we know steps, we know stagecraft, we know presentation, but we don't necessarily know all the other things that make our dancers as good as they can possibly be. And outside of injury, we're talking about well-being. So we're talking about nutrition, psychology, sleep, taking care of strength and conditioning, flexibility, return to dance after injury, and then broader issues around looking at things like running events, ethics and legality in Irish dancing, the development of the shoe, lots and lots of different topics that I'll talk through in a second. So I saw that this gap was there, and I did a little bit of research about how Irish dancing teachers felt about what they knew and what they didn't know. And there seemed to be this opportunity to create a programme of continuous professional development for teachers and for parents, actually, and older dancers, to really enhance their practice so that they could really get the very best out of their practice and out of their dancers, or yourself as a dancer. So it is for Irish dancing teachers and adjudicators from any organisation, or parents of dancers who are at an open level or have a good standard, so that you would understand Irish dancing, or older dancers. So the entry requirements are either a 2-2 degree in a degree programme, and if you're not sure whether you would meet that in terms of the Irish equivalency, our international office will help you with that. Or a lot of people will come in on relevant prior learning, or RPL. And this is basically, are you a teacher? Are you an adjudicator? Are you someone who's danced for years? Are you a parent of somebody who's danced for years? So do you understand Irish dancing? So quite a lot of people come in that route as well. Excuse me. And it's very accessible to everybody using both of those pathways. So a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the programme. It runs September to May. So there are two 12-week blocks within that semester. And we use what's called Brightspace, which is our virtual learning environment. So everything goes through the online platform that we have. So we use a flipped classroom approach. And what this means is that you will get all the material the week before we cover that topic. So I will upload a selection of 5 or 6 short videos. They tend to be about 15, 20 minutes long that you dip in and out of at your own time. And ideally, you'd have a look at those before we do the live session. There's additionally other resources. So I'll typically put up some papers or some podcasts or videos or talks about the topic. Sometimes it'll be directly about Irish dancing. Other times, because we don't have a massive amount of research in all the areas related to Irish dancing, it might relate to ballet or sport or something relevant, similar types of athletes. So the flipped classroom approach really means that you'll have all the material before we come to the live sessions. So every week there's a live session for 1.5 hours, and that is repeated. So last year we had 31 students on the program, and they were from 8 different countries. So Australia and New Zealand and the States and Canada and South Africa and everywhere in between. So we try as much as possible to facilitate people to be able to attend at least one of the sessions or a session every second week live, so that you can ask questions. And usually this actually was more of a peer discussion. So we bring on our expert speaker, if it wasn't myself leading the class, and we would discuss our own experiences and answer any questions. So that was really very enjoyable. And those are recorded so that if you can't make it, it's available for you and you can look back. And we communicate via email. So you'll all get your own emails and communicate that way, or via a discussion board. And we set up a student discussion board separately to all the other kind of academic-y stuff that we had on the module last semester. And the people on the program were able to ask each other about issues with the wig, or issues with this FET, or anyone traveling to the world and where are you staying. So there was this really nice community of practice. We since have our own WhatsApp group, so we've actually become very close as a group, and that continues to share information and news between us. So it's been really nice to build that community of learning. I'm going to talk you through briefly what we cover in semester 1 and then semester 2. Some of you might have seen these lovely people who are my invited experts. I'm a physiotherapist. I have a certain amount of skill, but I certainly don't cover all of these areas. So I've invited people that I know that are involved in dance or the relevant clinical or methodological area that I don't lead, and they will come on, they will record the videos, and they'll be present for the live sessions. So we start with the evolution of Irish dancing. So it's really nice to see where we've come from, our history, how things that have happened politically and culturally have informed what's happened in Irish dancing. So we take it all the way from way back with our stone circles back in the prehistoric days, right up until we come to the current climate in Irish dancing, and everything that's happened in the past 100, 120 years that has really informed Irish dancing as we know it today. Then I present a discussion on the drivers of injury. So in a lot of research, dance research generally, we tend to look at things like flexibility and strength and fitness and balance, and those are the things that drive injury. But I would propose that there's a huge plethora of factors that actually really impact injury and performance and well-being. So things like your psychological well-being, social and cognitive beliefs, your environment, lots of external factors. So we go through all of those things and we introduce the evidence around that. And it's just to open your mind as we start the program about all the stuff that we can actually address to make our dancers better, to make them perform better, to make them more successful, to make them healthier, to increase their longevity. We then do 2 weeks on introductory anatomy, and this focuses on the lower limb predominantly, and it just gives you the language and the basics around, you know, what's a joint, what does a ligament do, what happens when we injure this part, and we discuss a couple of really common injuries at this stage as well. So we work with Clem Nihal and myself on this part of the program. So this can be a little bit complex, not to get over worried about it. It's just to give you the language to be able to deal effectively with clinicians or physiotherapists when you are, you know, supporting your dancer. We then meet Idel Quinn, this lady here with beautiful curly hair, who's a colleague of mine from Riverdance, but she's also a lecturer in Safe and Dance in Chichester University in the UK, and she's very established in modern dance as well as Irish dance. And she talks about proper warm-up, proper cool-down, safe environment, the information you should be collecting from your dancers to make sure that everyone's safe. It's kind of the basics, but it's a really nice refresher to make sure that that we're doing things properly. A lot of us think we're doing warm-up and cool-down correctly, or maybe we're not even doing cool-down, but getting these basics right is really important. Then we have 2 weeks back-to-back with my friends Tom Commons, who is Professor of Strength and Conditioning here at the university and a former Olympian, whose daughter dances, so he gets it. And Scott Murphy, who's, again, an Olympic physiotherapist, who has worked with me extensively with Irish dancers, so he is a wonderful physio. And the 2 boys do strength and conditioning for Irish dancers. We talk about flexibility, stability, balance, proprioception, specifically for Irish dancers. And there's a suite of videos for people to watch and to titrate up in terms of building up your dancers. So where to start, where to bring them, for pitfalls to avoid, because sometimes when we bring Irish dancers to S&C guys who don't understand what we're doing, we can actually make things worse. Then we talk about loaded dance, which is probably my biggest area of focus and one of the things I think is most important. And it's about making sure that we don't make the dancers do too much too soon, so that they would become injured, and likewise that we load them sufficiently that we can build strength, that we can improve them, and we focus on tapering and making sure that they're ready for competition when that arrives. We're then going to talk about adolescent dancers. So this is one of 4 populations that we will discuss over the course of the program that have kind of specific needs. So adolescent dancers, that is the time, and a lot of you guys will know this yourselves, that's a real time of vulnerability for our dancers. So we learn how to protect them, how to spot those signs, where the problems come from, and some of the common conditions that we see day in, day out with dancers, and to know how to recognize them and what to do. We talk about return to dance after management. So I welcome Professor Róisín from Howard University in Washington, D.C. for that. And she talks about how we titrate coming back to dance after an injury that has us out of dancing, so that we're making sure that we're coming back safely and we're not going to get injured again as we come back. My friend Michelle Pye from the University of Shenandoah in Virginia in the States is going to talk about event management. And this is wonderful. So this talks about, if you're running a feis, how to make sure that everybody is safe, how to facilitate dancers backstage who maybe are nervous, lots of different considerations that I had never thought of. So this is a really interesting section. And our last week is our champion seminar, and we bring in here people who have had a really extensive and lauded pathway through dance. So we had Derval Lennon, Brendan de Gaulle, David Gainey, Claire Graney last semester, and just talking about their tips, what worked well for them, what didn't work, how they were motivated, how they dealt with their disappointments, and some really excellent tips and perspectives from those amazing dancers. So that'll be the last week. Semester 2, our first session, and these may not necessarily be in this order, but this session was actually on supporting neurodivergent dancers, and this session was introduced on the request of the students who were on the program last year. So we're very flexible in terms of meeting your needs as a dancing teacher. We're just about to start some research in this area about how Irish dancing teachers experience neurodiverse pupils in their class, and it's a really interesting area. So my colleague, Dr. Michelle O'Donoghue, who has a PhD in autism, is going to present some data on that. Then we are going to talk or hear from Professor Camilla Knight, and this again is one of my favourite sessions, and it's about optimising relationships in Irish dancing. And it talks about how we can best build relationships between parents, teachers and our dancers. So Camilla is an absolute world leader in this area in sports. And she has done some research with myself in Irish dancers. So some of you might have been involved in that, looking at how the perspectives of the parent and the child match up, and how we can really bring parents into dancing, or if you're a parent, how you can contribute to the class, so that we make sure we're all on the same page and we're all moving forward together for the best outcome for the dancer. We then do diet and nutrition with Professor Catherine Norton, wonderful clinician who has worked with all sorts of professional athletes, and she talks about optimizing diet and nutrition. And we've had some brilliant feedback on the advice that she has given around feis days, and those kids who can't eat first thing in the morning, and how to really sustain your feis day, and how to support your dancer and your growing dancer through the week with all these demands that we have on them. The next part in this little triad of sessions is psychological well-being, and Professor Mark Campbell talks about how to deal with disappointments, how to goal set, how to manage nerves, all of those kind of things that we're also familiar with. And then Giles Warrington, who's a really celebrated professor in the area of sleep, talks about how we can optimize sleep and jet lag. So sleep is an area that's really hot, for want of a better word, in sport at the moment. So we all know if we get crappy sleep for a few nights, how it impacts our general well-being and our performance in all facets of life. So this talk is really brilliant about helping us get, good quality sleep, and then looking particularly at jet lag. So dealing with international competitions, so making sure that people can really be at their best when they arrive and they have to dance. The next 3 sessions are 3 specific cohorts again. So we're going to look at older adult Irish dancers, and we're talking about predominantly recreational leisure dancers, but dancers who still compete. And there's a lot of considerations when you start getting into your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond, in terms of both the benefits of dancing, which is phenomenal for our heart health, bone health, for our psychological health, neurological well-being and so on. But there's also things that we have to be aware of. And for us as teachers or for older dancers, it's really useful to have this information. And when we talk about maybe screening people and making sure that people are safe. The second series in this is boys in Irish dancing. And some of you might have seen the research that we're conducting at the minute. And this is a fascinating area. So it's looking at the experience of boys, why we're not retaining them, and how we can entice boys to be more involved. So looking at different strategies to engage boys in dancing, and how to be mindful of some of the problems that they still encounter. So I'm currently doing focus groups on this, and we're still seeing things like bullying and stigmatization and stuff like that, and how we as a community can counteract that, protect our boys, and grow dancing for everybody, for males and boys. And it's not all bad news. There's lots of fantastic stories of camaraderie and collegiality and friendship that has pervaded boys in dance, probably more so than the girls. The third session here is about professional Irish dancers, and we welcome Pádraig Moyles, who is the he's not the associate director anymore. I need to update that. So he is the CEO. He's the head honcho of Riverdance, and we've recorded a fantastic talk about what it means to be a professional Irish dancer, the skills you need, the experiences that you're going to have. And we also welcome on the live session dancers who are currently performing professionally, just to get their perspectives on what they do, what they experience, the advice that they have for teachers who are perhaps considering sending kids to a show, or parents, or if you're an older dancer yourself and you're interested in getting involved. Then we have 2 that pair as well. So we look at podiatry and the dancing foot. So our feet are our tools. We need to be able to protect them, and it's a very specialised area. So my colleague from University College Galway, Adam McElwain, who is a podiatrist but also has worked with a lot of dancers as well as rugby players and all sorts of athletes, talks about some of the common problems that we see in the Irish dancing foot and other conditions, and how to protect them and how to be flagged up to when something is a problem, what you need to keep an eye out. So very kind of a specialist area, but really important for us. Then we have Bernard Hartigan, who is developing an evidence-based Irish dancing shoe, light and heavy. So we had really interesting discussion about where he's at, some of the problems he has around the heel. His light shoe should probably be ready for trialing by the time any of you guys come on the program. So that's been really interesting to watch that evolution, and to think that the problems that I had when I was a dancer 7 million years ago are still pervading Irish dancers today. And it's really an area that we, I suppose, could do with some guidance on as a community. A really important discussion then from our legal professor. So Professor Emer Spain is a professor of law and ethics, and she talks about ethical and legal issues in Irish dancing. So we talked about things like consent. We talked about things like child protection, some of the governance that happens with that. And although the specifics will vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction, because we're all from all over the world, the overriding principles are the same, and they're absolutely critical that we know what our responsibilities are and when we need to step in, and when we need to be aware of protection of the child to make sure that we're meeting our obligations. And our final session then was originally meant to be to hear from inspirational teachers around the world, but we actually had so many inspirational teachers on the program that I changed it to entrepreneurs in Irish dancing. And we had some amazing guests. So we had Ciara Sexton talking about her new book. We had Chris talking about, not forgetting his second name, talking about fusion fighters, with people talking about their practice pads, various things that they're doing. So it was really interesting to see how people can grow their Irish dancing careers in different ways, and found out subsequently that some of our students, including one that's here today, has her own set of books in Irish dancing. So as you see, it's very broad. It's the program is to give you perspectives and a grounding in all of these areas and to make you aware of these areas. It's not to make you an expert in any of them, so the level of depth isn't huge, but that is by design. And there's opportunities then to engage further with any of these areas if you want to. So I provide lots of other resources that are not required reading or anything, but they're there if you want to have them. And our experts are always, they to a man and woman, they're available for further questions or if you have specific queries. They're very, very generous with their times. So assessments or assignments, this is the bit that everybody goes, oh my God, how much is required? Will I be able to cope with it? So the program is designed for busy professional people like yourselves. And even though it looks like there's a lot here, the assessments are really spread out. And I checked in with my students, and you can ask them yourselves today, later on. The assignments are really quite manageable. So we do a portfolio in semester 1 and semester 2. And these are a series of weekly short exercises, 500 words. Sometimes they're reflective. So they might be asking you about your watershed moment in Irish dance. So for some people, it would have been competing at the first word. Some people it would have been river dance. It can vary, and just reflecting on how that has impacted your dance career. Other times it might be, can you design a menu for someone attending a feis, and you'll be giving a little template for, so those are quite useful, and we share those with everybody, and people tend to borrow bits and pieces from each other's work. In semester 1, we also do a load calendar. So what this means is looking at your calendar a year forward and planning out what you're going to focus on in certain blocks of the year. And we'll talk about this during the module, obviously. But basically, if we look at training like professional athletes do, and we should be doing, we should be breaking things down into blocks where we can ramp up, we can peak, and we can taper off and rest before we go again. And each of those little blocks should have specific aims, whether we're going to work on, balance in the first month, or whether we're going to work on stage performance or presence the second month, or we're going to work on mindfulness, whatever it might be. So it allows you then, by putting in also all the big competitions you're going to attend, the smaller competitions you are going to attend, the times you'll not be available, it allows you to plan and gives you a lot of certainty, and gives parents and dancers certainty also. So that's the load calendar, and I'm trying to create things that are actually useful for people in their practice. And the final part of your assessment in semester 1 is a case study. So you'll be given just a little tableau of a dancer with lots and lots of problems, and you have to identify the problems and some of the areas that you could intervene. So it's just kind of bringing together everything that we did in the first semester. Semester 2, portfolio, again, very similar, and that's kind of week to week. And then I'm changing this, so my current students will be familiar with this. It's a pedagogy reflection. So I'm going to give you some knowledge and some information about how we teach. So we all have ways that we teach, but reflecting on, what strategy is that, and is there other ways we could do it, and just a reflective piece on that. And then the final exercise is an infographic, and this is really useful. So I'll give you 6 or 7 topics. So it might be supporting older dancers, or optimizing travel for jet lag, or something like that. And you'll design a little poster, and then you'll provide a written piece, just 1,000 words, on supporting what you've included in the poster. And I know that a lot of the students have shared each other's and put them up in their classes. So they're really useful, and you can choose whichever one works best for your setting. So time commitment, that's the other thing that people always ask. So I get this all the time. I'm really busy, I'm teaching, I'm working, I've 10 kids, I've sports, I'm blah, blah, blah. It is designed for busy people. So as I said, the initial bits and pieces, the videos that you look at, they're short. You can look at one or listen to one when you're driving in the car or going for a walk, or when you have 20 minutes to look at it. And the resources stay there, so you have plenty of time to review when you want to. So it's really, really flexible. There's always extensions available if you can't, for whatever reason, get an assignment in. There is no problem with that. I understand that is the way it is. So I am not massively strict on this is the deadline. Send me an email, we can always work it out. And it's designed to be integrated into your practice. So some of the assignments might be, find 4 kids in your class and check what their balance is like, or 4 people in your family. Or can you design a cool down and record a video, or write it up? So it's the kind of tasks that you'll get to do that are really relevant, and that you can integrate into your class while you're there anyway. So they're not extra on top as much as possible. but it has worked really, really well. I checked with the guys that did it last semester, and they found it that it was very manageable, and a lot of them are very, very busy. And as I said, if there's an issue, if someone is unwell or if you have responsibilities, drop me a line. There's no problem. We have worked around some massive things this semester, and it's fine. This is an adult learning course. It's not like being at school. This is to make us better at what we love to do. Cost then is the other thing. So I've taken this directly from the frequently asked questions on the web page. So the full program is €2,450 for the year. It can be paid in full or installments. Excuse me. So fees may be paid upfront or at the start of each semester. But in terms of the best payment plans to spread your fees, if you'd like, these are the following options for European students and non-EU students. So for EU students, there's an upfront deposit of €250, and then you can pay the balance over a 9-month period. So that's €245 per month. And remember that this is all, you can deduct all of this for your tax because it's professional development. And then for the non-EU students, there's a €600 upfront deposit, and then you have the follow-up for 9 months of €206. And the fees office would sort that out for you. So again, as much as possible, we're trying to facilitate people to really be able to engage in this program in a way that isn't going to be restrictive in terms of cost. So I wanted to just give you, before we actually hear from our students, and you'll get the opportunity to ask them any questions you want. So these are some of the things that the guys said, and they were very, very kind and very generous, and just to say that I really appreciated it. So when it comes to continuing education for TCRGs, this has been the absolute best investment I have made to date. I appreciated the ability to take this course as self-paced due to the time zone differences. I have learned so much from the lecturers and PowerPoint presentations. Just brilliant. Thank you. Structure and flexible options were ideal for online learning, catered extremely well for international participation. Selection of material for inclusion in the course is spot on. This course is a must for anyone in the Irish dancing community and an invaluable experience, essential CPD training for Irish dance teachers. So people were genuinely very happy with the programme. I've had lots of emails about performance improvements, better results, healthier, happy dancers, healthier, happy teachers. So it has worked really well, and people will pick and choose the bits that make the most sense to them to start. So this is our class, most of us. So what I think we'll do now is I'll stop sharing, and I'm going to maybe ask some of our students on the program just to maybe say a few words. So I see that I have Megan. I might start with you, just so if people have questions, and I see there's some maybe in the chat, feel free to just to start thinking about those. But I have, who have I got? Catherine, Maggie, Christy, and Laura. So I've actually 4 people here. So Megan, can you just give us like a 1-minute synopsis of your experience, good, bad, and ugly? So let the guys know what they're getting themselves in for, but mainly good.
No, yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I, just by way of quick introduction, I am a teacher with on commission in Lexington, Kentucky. I have a small community-based Cayley school and program. My certification level is a TMRF. So just a word to everybody there. This is a program that, regardless of your certification level, regardless of your organization, or even if you are still a dancer who is working towards certification with an organization, it's something that I think is really going to be beneficial. One of the things that I found to be really the most engaging for me was the opportunity, one, to connect with so many of my peers around the world, but also finding the things that worked for me. Finding the bits and nuggets of the courses that I could take directly to the classroom and begin to work with our students on. We don't have a very highly competitive school, so some of the things that we talk about in terms of elite dancers wouldn't necessarily apply, but there was something that was applicable in every single lesson that we had. The other thing that I found, and really this just was something that I think I've been doing a lot of on a lot of fronts these days, was it enabled me to really kind of be introspective in terms of what I am doing, what I want my dance program to be, what I want it to represent within our community and then within the larger Irish dance world as a whole. And I was able to take the assignments and really target them for how it would best help me. My final project, for example, dealt specifically with dancers over the age of 40 or 50. And that's actually a large number of the students that I have in our program. So I think that if this is something that is in the world of possibilities for you, absolutely take the opportunity to do it. And I will let some of my fellow students talk to some of the other aspects of it.
Thank you, Megan. I might go, I'm just going as I see you, so I'll go to Catherine next.
Hello. Yeah, I was really excited to have an opportunity to talk to people, to say how valuable the course was. And Megan's just summarized it in such a really clear way. For me, it was exactly the same. It was the ability to put things directly into practice. I teach in Far North Queensland in Australia, and I feel fairly removed from some of the Irish dancing community. So for me, it was a little bit about a little validation about what I thought I should be doing. Probably wasn't doing it as well as I could have been doing it, but because I don't have such close interaction with many other Irish dancing teachers or other schools, it was a validation that what I thought I should be doing was right, and then giving me the tools to be able to put it into practice and shape it specifically for our situation and our dancers. And they're not all elite dancers. I think that was one of the things I was worried about when I first started the course, that not all of my dancers are elite dancers. And when we started to talk specifically about overtraining, that's certainly not a problem I had with any of my dancers. They don't overtrain. In fact, I have almost the opposite problem. But it gave me so much motivation to start working on different things and looking at different levels. And as Megan said, the opportunity to speak with other teachers from all over the world, from all different styles of Irish dancing. So I also am a CLRG adjudicator and teacher, but I really enjoyed the opportunity to speak with other Irish dance community that were not CLRG. I really enjoyed that opportunity. So yeah, absolutely. The time difference internationally made no difference to me because it's 11:30 here at night, but that was a great time for me to study because my family are asleep, they're in bed, I don't have work. It's really concentrated time, and I really felt a bit indulgent actually. It was all about me and improving my professional development when it comes to what I love doing, which is Irish dancing. So I love it. If I could have continued on for another year, I would continue to do it. So much more to learn.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And we'll go to Christy next.
Hi, I'm Christy. I live in Utah in the United States, and I teach here under CLRG. And I actually really love being on this morning because I've really missed the class. I really looked forward to each week and each time I got to meet with the cohort. And it's kind of a pleasure to be here today and just be experiencing that again. I really enjoyed it. I know Róisín has talked about expanding the program in the future. I would love to see that. I will definitely participate in that if that continues to go on. Some of the things that I really loved about the course, it was very accessible. I didn't feel like the workload was overly burdensome. I definitely did take time, but I was happy to put in that time. And it's something I'm so passionate about, and it was topics I was very interested in. So it didn't seem like a burden at all to put in that time. Some of the things I really, really loved learning about. I loved learning about the periodization and load management for dancers. And I've used that a lot in my classes to help prevent injury, as that was something that I was seeing as my dancers become more competitive on more of a world stage, how to help them manage their load and not get injured. I loved learning about the nutrition for dancers and sleep training and all those missing pieces that I felt were missing from my education. And I feel like a much more prepared teacher. I feel more prepared to manage and teach those things. And one thing that I was surprised to learn for myself is when we did the unit on older dancers, and we had some guest speakers who were talking about their experience as an older dancer in Irish dance. It was very validating for me because I am an older dancer, and just to know that other people are experiencing some of the same things I am, and that it's okay for me to not be able to, say, do a champion level dance in front of my students. Those type of things was very, very helpful to see that I am on par with being able to teach those things. And one of the things that was unexpected for me that was a bonus is I'm also a public school teacher, and I was needing to recertify my certificate because it had expired. And this course counted towards, I believe it was 30 credits for both classes. And I didn't even know that till we were done. I was like, holy cow, I earned that many credits. That's amazing. And I was able to renew my certificate in just a couple of weeks, and I thought it would take me years. So that was an added bonus. And I recommend the course. I loved it so much.
Thank you, Christy. Before I go to Laura, who's last, and then some questions, some of the ladies have talked about extending the program. So we're hoping, and I'm working on building the program into a diploma and a master's program, which will be a research master's. So we're going through the hoops in the university with that. So it'll be a year or two, but certainly I think there's great opportunity there to extend it and to increase the research and the learning, and for people to specialize a bit more. So they might be more interested in psychology or diet, and to look at the resources that we have in the university to support that. So finally, and thank again everybody so much for coming on. Laura, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Hopper. I'm a teacher and an adjudicator in Nova Scotia, Canada. Like my classmates, I had such a positive experience with this program. I can't speak highly enough about it. It was really, really enjoyable. Everything that we learned was so immediately applicable to what we're doing in the studio, which I found really, really helpful. The session we did on jet lag and sleep, I was able to work with our dancers who are going to Ireland for All Irelands and for the Worlds to prep them so that they could be best equipped for when they were traveling to be ready. Because, you know, when you don't live in Ireland, sometimes you don't get a week to stay there and adjust, and you have only 1 or 2 days before your competition day. So how can you be set up effectively? My final project was on how to fuel your body for Fesh Day. Several of my dancers printed that out, used it at their next Fesh, and then one parent said, we used it for the Fesh. She was so energetic, it was great. And then we didn't use it for workshop weekend, and she was exhausted. And oh my gosh, like we had to have a chat with her about how she eats appropriately because she didn't do it right on workshop weekend. So like immediately, I think our dancers are seeing the impact of what we're learning, which is really, really cool. Another thing that I was reflecting on post class is the session around legality and child safety and all that stuff. Most all of us, I believe, have to do in the States, it's Safe Sport, and in Canada, it's Commit for Kids or something like that. That course, the session that we do in this program goes so above and beyond the requirements that we have to do to get certified to be safe with CLRG. Like, you learn so much more beyond just grooming and how do you make sure that you spot grooming and that you're not accidentally grooming a kid. You're also learning about all sorts of other things that we should be on the lookout for and how we can support our children. And I found that really valuable. The last thing I'll say around the time commitment is around time commitment. And, you know, I was nervous going into this program, like I'm sure so many people on this call. I have a full-time job outside of dance. I run the dance school. I'm also with Megan on the change coordination committee for CLRG, so volunteering for CLRG. I run a 2-day Fesh as well. And, you know, so a lot of the things that we were doing, you know, my Fesh was a week after the final project was due. Our Oireachtas was the week after. In the fall, our last project was due. But none of the projects are overwhelming. So if you manage your time and, you know, you don't leave everything to the last minute, everything is very doable. And, you know, it, like everyone has said, it gives you time to focus on something that you love in a different way. So for me, it's really sort of brought my love of dance up a level because I can appreciate it in a different way, and I can talk to my kids in a different way about you should go see the physio. I think you've got Achilles tendonitis, or I can tell your knees aren't straight because I think you're growing and you're 10. So I'm going to be patient about that, and stuff like that. So yeah, everything was just so immediately applicable. Nothing was too overwhelming, and just really valuable learning. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important to say, you can probably tell from the ladies that are on the call there that they all bring so much expertise to the program, and that is shared as well. So I bring, and the guests, the whole array of guest speakers bring a certain amount, but there's a huge amount that is brought by you guys as well. And I think what you learned from each other and shared, all the little assignments that you shared, was equally valuable to everything else. It's an extra add-on. So huge thanks to the ladies. When I popped up, will anybody come and say something nice? So many people. I actually have said, I have enough, it's okay. So just to say thank you sincerely so much, especially Catherine, as usual, middle of the night lady. So I'd love to throw it over